Good morning, everyone. This is The Crave, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to use the various ways of animating in Anime Studio without getting them all muddled. So let's turn to this guy right here. This is called Joey, and I've used a variety of different ways of animating Joey, including bone animation, point animation, and layer animation. So the question is, how do you organize all that stuff? Well, the first thing you have to consider is, how do you plan the character? So I've put Joey through a couple of different versions, and the one I've decided on is, as you can see, I've actually got a bone layer with a bone layer under each for each tentacle. And the tentacles have quite a few keyframes, more than I really want, but I want it to have a certain kind of motion. So when he does his little head waggle, I have the tips of his tentacles kind of go blah, 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 like that. There we go. So that's what's with all the keyframes there. Which brings me to the second thing. Not only do you have to plan your character, but you have to be really careful of where you put your keyframes and keep track of them. Because if you're animating with more than one track, then you have to know where the animation is. Otherwise, when you make a mistake, which you inevitably do, you can't find it, right? It's called Hunt the Keyframe. It's a terrible, terrible game. Nobody likes it. So what do we have here? We have bone animation in the tentacles. We have layer animation with the head going up and down and twisting around. All this stuff is layer animation. And then we have point animation for the squash and stretch. So as he comes up for his weirdo laugh, his body squashes and stretches in. Also, you can see that really disgusting eye core coming out, which actually made some of my students a little ill. And that's all point animation too. So, how do you organize all this stuff in your head? Well, the idea is try to keep it as simple as possible. If you can, keep it all on the bone layer, because then you won't have to worry about any other kinds of layers. But if you have to go further afield, limit the amount that you do. So, if I want to make a tentacle move, I go to my tentacle layers. I grab a tentacle, put down what I've been calling a stop frame, but I don't know what it's called. Just a frame to stop the motion from happening before I want it to happen. And then I make my little motion. All right, so I just remember that I've done it there. Then if I want my head to tilt when that happens, I overlap the action maybe just a little bit. I think I'm going to use a bone to do that. Remember I said to simplify? Well, since I've got him on a layer bone, why on earth would I use a layer animation for that? Oh, that's why. Because that bone doesn't actually control his head. So I go to the head right there, and I go to layer animation. Better put down the little stop frame. Click on it to just put a frame there to stop it from animating. And then I turn the head a little bit. There we go. So I got this animation. All right, now let's say I want a little point animation there too. Let's say, I don't know, let's make the chest do something. I then go into the chest, finding it right, the body right there. I grab my point transform tool. Again, it's all about control, doing one step at a time, making sure that I've clicked on all the points to make sure to add a stop frame. And I'm just going to do a really subtle little motion there. Yeah, I don't like it, but for the purposes of this little tutorial, I guess I can live with it. So there we go. Yeah, it looks terrible. But there you go. So to sum up, what you need to do is kind of keep your head together. If you have to write it down, I would write it down. Design your character knowing that you're going to animate in a variety of ways. Try to simplify the track so you only have to animate on one track. And then when you do animate, try to find a way to remember what you've animated. And that's how you combine all the various kinds of animation in Anime Studio.